at the international desk. Strong denials from top officials named in the Panama Papers. The first migrants sent back by Greece arriving Turkey. And Donald Trump tells one of his rivals to get out of the race. Hello and welcome to the international desk. I'm Lynda Kinked. Public officials and celebrities worldwide are expressing outrage and denial. A massive collection of leaked documents has been published by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. The so-called Panama Papers allege that a law firm in Panama called Mossack Fonseca helped more than 100 politicians and key figures set up shell companies and offshore accounts. That in itself is legal, but in some cases the new report suggests that the accounts are tied to questionable activity. Our CNN team is following this fascinating story. Richard Quest joins us live from New York and Matthew Chance is live for us from Moscow. Richard, first to you. Rich people have been using offshore tax havens that we know for quite some time. What makes this leak of 11.5 million documents dating back to 1977 so alarming?
I think, first of all, it is the mere fact that they have been leaked. This law firm has been responsible for putting together the most secret of the secret. They create offshore companies, they set up nominee bearer shares, they put in intermediaries, they put in place all the structures which other lawyers and banks then use for their clients. So this law firm as such is not necessarily dealing with, if you like, the famous people, the celebrities and the politicians. But the mere fact that we are getting a glimpse into the interconnected web of intrigue that is created by these structures is what is astonishing. Now, you have to remember, Lynda, every time you ever ask a question to any person, any bank, any company, any intermediary, you hit a brick wall. And so you literally hit the wall of the offshore company, and you can go no further to discover the web of intrigue. What this does is expose it.
Richard, many countries we know of already are investigating the allegations made in these documents, including Australia, the UK, Mexico. What sort of implications could we see?
Well, the G20, ever since the great financial crisis in 2009, has made tax evasion one of its #1 priorities. They've gone out wholesale. I mean, Switzerland has felt it. All the big Swiss banks have felt it. Liechtenstein's felt it. The Channel Islands, many of the islands in the Caribbean. And so the effect of this is going to be to lay bare serious questions to a large number of people that really say, hang on, Mr. President, Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. former leader of a country, why were you using these countries? It's not illegal. It's not illegal. But why were you using these law companies? Why were you using these shell companies? Why had you set up such convoluted structures to hide your affairs? And that's going to be the question. And basically, governments around the world have got the bit between the teeth because they see untold taxation and they are determined to get their hands on the money.
And that is a very good question. And speaking of world leaders, I just want to bring in Matthew Chance. President Putin wasn't named in these documents, but there was a trail of deals worth $2 billion that is linked to close friends of the president. What is the Kremlin saying?
Well, the Kremlin is rejecting any wrongdoing, saying that all of the allegations that have been made against the Russian president, in the sense that he is connected with some of these individuals that have been named, are what the Kremlin calls fibs, designed to discredit the Russian leader ahead of parliamentary elections that are scheduled to be held later this year. You know, it's not the first time that Russia and the Russian leadership has been implicated in wide-scale corruption allegations. In fact, we've heard this time and again. I mean, what's interesting about these latest revelations, though, is the detail it provides about how that suspected money laundering scam may operate when it comes to Russia. There are a number of sort of dodgy deals that have emerged out of these leaked papers, these 11 million or so documents that have been made public now. One of them talks about a bank loan to an individual very close to Vladimir Putin, an old friend of his, in fact, since he was a child, the godfather of his daughter. A bank loan for $800 million. And there's no record whatsoever of a penny of that, a cent of that, I should say, ever being repaid. There's another example of the same individual bought an asset for $1. He sold that asset 3 months later for $133 million. And so this all adds up, according to critics and the accusers, to the very kind of, strange way, or the very corrupt way in which the Kremlin's finances are run, and how people close to the president, Vladimir Putin, are enriched with the approval of the state.
Yeah, some really sketchy sounding deals there. And of course, although the president wasn't named in these documents, a bank identified by the US as President Putin's personal cash box was named.
Yeah, that was the bank that gave the $800 million loan. It's called Bank Russia, the Bank of Russia. And you're right, it has been designated, or rather identified as, a bank which is utilised very much by Vladimir Putin and those of his inner circle. I mean, look, as I say, this is not the first time that corruption allegations have been levelled against the Russian president. And in the past, those allegations have done very little, in fact, domestically here in Russia, to damage the country's leadership popularity, the popularity personally of Vladimir Putin. And, in fact, there's very little to suggest that anything will be different this time. This may be getting a lot of traction and causing a lot of outrage outside of Russia. But inside Russia, there's very little sense in which this is going to lead finally to the Russian public turning to each other and saying, this is so much money that's gone missing. This is so much money that's been laundered. We hold our leadership responsible. There's no sense that this is necessarily going to damage the popularity of Vladimir Putin.
OK, Matthew Chance for us in Moscow, Richard Quest for us in New York. Great to have you both with us. Thank you very much.